we can finally put to rest the disaster that the DCEU was. At least, I think we are. It's all so confusing. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to TCK Films, and since Shazam! Fury of the Gods, the final DCEU movie, I think, released, I will rank all 13 DCEU films, from my least favorite to my favorite. But before we get into my ranking, let me know your guys' ranking in the comment section down below. And 13th, to nobody's surprise, we have Suicide Squad 2016. This might be the most disappointing movie ever, considering it was probably the best marketed movie out of all of these, honestly. Also, it had a great cast, but it ended up being one of the worst films of all time. It has unlikable characters, bad portrayals on characters like Killer Croc and Enchantress, who's just an awful villain. And Jared Leto's Joker, come on, he was awful in this. There's like no defending this Joker in my opinion. This was just not the Joker. This was some guy pretending to be the Joker, like in the streets of New York. I mean, how do you even make the Joker the worst part of your film? There's just awful writing, lackluster fights, bad characters, just straight up stupidity at some points. And yeah, it sucks, and that's why it's in last place. Coming in 12th place, another disaster of a movie, Justice League, also known as Justice League from 2017. Everybody knows all the behind the scenes drama and tragedies that happened, and it really reflected onto this movie. Since Joss Whedon directed this movie, he really tried to make it like the Avengers movie, and the Justice League is not like the Avengers, and this movie is proof that that doesn't work. Also, it doesn't help that there was really no setup to this movie. Like, we got Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, and then Justice League. That just doesn't make sense, but that's a whole nother story in itself. There is some stupid, cringy humor in this movie, especially with the Flash and even Batman. An uninteresting villain who nobody cared about or even remembered his name by the end of the movie. Characters not acting like how they really are. Characters who are barely in the movie who are part of the team, like Cyborg. Bad CGI, bad everything. It's an awful movie, but it's not as bad as Suicide Squad. Now, coming in 11th place, we have another bad movie. Surprise, surprise. We have Wonder Woman 1984. Honestly, I forgot this movie existed until I started making this list. It's just that forgettable and uninteresting and stupid. Like, the one thing I really remember from this movie is how stupid it was. Like, I remember it was all revolved around this magic rock that granted powers or something. Maybe if it was a Disney Channel movie, it would be good, but nah, this is a high-budget DC film. What the heck? Pedro Pascal was probably the best part of this movie, but even he could not save this movie. Cheetah was wasted in my opinion, which sucks because she's like the most iconic Wonder Woman villain. Just the script is so awful and stupid, and even Diana wasn't as likable in this movie as she was in the first, so it's just an all-around bad movie yet again. Now coming in 10th place, we have Birds of Prey and whatever has a long title with Harley Quinn. It's not even a Birds of Prey movie. I mean, they become the Birds of Prey at the end and Harley Quinn isn't even on that team. It's a Harley Quinn movie, and as much as I love Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, she cannot carry her own movie. It has a lot of cringy and unfunny scenes, like that whole egg sandwich sequence. Yes, there's an egg sandwich sequence. I remember I actually wanted to turn off this movie because it was just that hard to watch. It's also just very forgettable too. I don't think anybody wants to rewatch this movie. I do like Black Canary in this movie. I do like the portrayal on her character, but she was barely in it. Also, Ewan McGregor as Black Mask was a pleasant surprise in my opinion. Overall, it's just not a good movie. Now, coming in 9th place, this might surprise a few people. I have Aquaman. Now, I think this is one of the most overrated movies of all time, and I do not know how it passed $1 billion. Yes, Jason Momoa kills it in this role, and this movie has probably the best visuals out of any movie on this list. Probably one of the best visuals in any comic book movie. But it honestly seems like it's 5 hours long. I remember watching this in theaters, constantly checking the time to be like, all right, can we wrap this up already? It just felt so long. It's not that rewatchable either, in my opinion. I think there's just way too much going on in this movie, and it doesn't flow well at all. You have two great villains in Ocean Master and Black Manta, and I don't understand why they both had to be crammed into this movie. You could have saved one. I would have saved Black Manta for the next movie, but it did make Aquaman badass, so I'll give it that. Now coming in 8th place, we have the newest DCEU movie, Shazam! Fury of the Gods. If you want to check out my full thoughts on this movie, make sure to check out my review. But it's just such a mediocre and generic superhero movie, and it does pretty much everything the first one does, just so much worse. And I think Zachary Levi as Shazam, in my opinion, is much worse in this movie, portraying more of a 10, 12-year-old in the superhero's body rather than a 17-year-old. The villains are uninteresting and forgettable. It's just an overall generic superhero movie. It's not awful, but it's not a movie I'll ever go to rewatch again. Now coming in number 7, we have another mediocre movie in Black Adam. I think why I like this movie a little bit more than Shazam 2 is it brings to the big screen, the live action screen for the first time, some cool characters like Hawkman and Dr. Fate, and I actually really enjoyed them in this movie. And it has some cool fight scenes in my opinion, a cool soundtrack, but at the end of the day, it's just another Rock movie. He's essentially just playing himself at this point. and The Rock, in my opinion, is not that interesting.
Shut up!
Now coming at 6th place, and this is very high on my list, even though it really shouldn't be, we have Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Now this movie isn't even that good, and it's number 6 on the list, and that says a ton about the DCEU, but I think it's much better than all the movies ranked below this one. Yes, this movie does some very dumb things, like that whole Martha scene. I hate Lex Luthor in this movie. That is not Lex Luthor. It's like a Joker Riddler merge, and they call it Lex Luthor for some reason. Having Batman kill is still a dumb decision in my opinion, and overall it just sets up way too much in this movie, and it forgets that it's its own movie. I mean, Batman and Superman fight for like 2 minutes in the movie, and that's the title of the movie. But it also gives us Ben Affleck's Batman, who I'm a huge fan of, honestly. I really like his portrayal in Batman, even though he does kill. I think Ben Affleck's just one of the best actors of our generation. I think he really embodied this role. It also gave us one of, if not the best Batman fight scenes of all time, and it introduces Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, who is just perfect casting for Wonder Woman. But overall, the movie is a giant mess. It just tries to set up the future of the DCEU, and the second movie in the DCEU, it's a mess. Now coming in 5th place, finally we have some good movies on this list. We have Man of Steel. Henry Cavill is just a perfect Superman. May he rest in peace in the DCEU. I honestly really love the first half of this movie. It's honestly a great Superman origin story. I think it perfectly shows Clark's early years, and it makes you realize why we love Superman so much. Michael Shannon as Zod is great casting in my opinion. I think he was great in this movie, and I cannot wait to see him in the upcoming Flash movie. The final fight I like, but I feel like that fight and pretty much the whole movie is a lot darker than what it needs to be. Superman's this lighthearted character, and they took a whole much darker tone to it, which wasn't awful. I don't think it didn't work, but I think it was a little bit too dark for a Superman. But yeah, finally a good movie on this list, Man of Steel. Now coming in 4th place, we have the first Shazam movie. Now this movie was a pleasant surprise. I don't think I love it as much as most people, but it's just such a fun and rewatchable movie that you could put on any time. And unlike a lot of superhero movies, it really does nail the humor and realizes the silly tone and characters of the movie and just embodies that, and it's a great time. But also it has some really great serious moments. That scene where Billy finds his mom is like heartbreaking every time you watch it. You know, the villain is another generic, forgettable comic book villain, but it's a very enjoyable movie. Now coming in at our top 3, we have Wonder Woman from 2017. One of the best origin stories for a superhero movie ever. Right from the start of this movie, Diana is a great character who we fall in love with instantly. Gal Gadot and Chris Pine, who plays Steve Trevor, have amazing chemistry in this movie, which is perfect considering they have so many scenes together. Not only is it just a great superhero movie and a great movie in general, it's a great war movie. I think it does an excellent job of showing the horrors of war, even if we do have this superhero character in the middle of it. I mean, that No Man's Land scene is one of the best scenes in a comic book movie. This is just a timeless superhero movie, and that's why it's one of the best DCEU movies. Now, coming in 2nd place, we have Zack Snyder's Justice League. A huge, and I mean humongous step up from the first Justice League movie. Even if it's 4 hours, I honestly don't mind rewatching this one. I mean, you actually have to like sit down and watch all the 4 hours, but I don't mind it. Yes, it is slow at some points, but I think the overall movie just really does a great job of showing who the Justice League are and actually fits the tone of the Justice League, unlike the 2017 version. And we finally get to see characters like Cyborg done right and have us like be like, yes, Cyborg was probably the coolest character from that movie. And I think since Zack Snyder did that, it's one of the best. I'm not a huge fan of Ezra Miller's portrayal on the character. I think he was definitely so much better in this movie, and maybe like him a lot more than what I did. The scene where he goes back in time is probably the best scene of the movie. And Steppenwolf, so much compelling and so much more interesting. While it's not a perfect movie or even a perfect Justice League movie, it's a damn fun to watch in my opinion. And coming in 1st place, we have the Suicide Squad, directed by James Gunn. James Gunn is just a genius. This is one of the few comic book movies that feels like it's straight out of a comic book and looks like a comic book. The visuals are great, the acting is great, the characters are amazing in this movie. I mean, he makes all these silly D-list characters who some people have never even heard of some of the best comic book characters ever. Polka Dot Man, King Shark, Peacemaker, and the list goes on and on and on, are characters that you just want to see more of. Also, just some amazing acting performances by all. This also has a loaded cast, but this time the movie's actually great and lives up to the expectations, unlike the first one. It's just a great comic book movie and embodies how you should make a comic book movie. So there's my ranking of the DCEU. Let me know you guys in the comment section down below. Do you guys agree with my list? Do you guys not? Let me know all that in the comment section down below. And if you guys haven't already, make sure to like the video, comment, subscribe, turn on your post notifications so you never miss a video, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.